News coming from the US. The Menendez brothers, who were convicted of killing their parents, are set to be resentenced after featuring in hit Netflix shows. Lyle Menendez, who is 56, and his brother, 53-year-old Eric, are serving life in prison without parole for the shotgun murders of their father and mother in 1989. The two brothers could be freed early after 34 years behind bars. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. In its new look, your first look at Friday's top stories with three top comedians. First things first, hot off the press, let's crank through the front pages. We have The Times, Reeves risks hurting pensioners. Telegraph, Reeves warned over £50 billion debt fiddle. The Daily Mail, Labour's budget ploy will punch mortgage holders. The Guardian, PM rules out payments but could back non-cash slavery reparations. The Metro, £1.8 billion cost of thieving crisis. And the Daily Star, there's a guy each down the curry house swears he's Paul Weller. So, those are the front pages. Let's kick off with the Daily Mail in some detail. Kerry, what do you pick out from there?
You wouldn't know it, but the budget is coming up. And we are very deep in speculations and warnings because no one likes a budget.
No.
And it's coming soon. So we're hearing about changing of fiscal rules, new definitions, and everything that the Chancellor can do to kind of mould this budget into something that is not going to sound like a Liz Truss budget or cause fear in the markets and so on, which she doesn't seem to be able to escape from right now.
You say that, but actually it does sound like a little bit like a Liz Truss budget because there's suddenly a huge borrowing element, which is what Jeremy Hunt is warning is going to push mortgages up.
Yes, this changing the rules could allow her to borrow an extra $50 billion, which... yes, I mean, that is going to. I don't really see that she's in a position that she can do much here that's going to satisfy anyone. So, you know, I mean, the talk of putting up business national insurance, everything has knock-on effects.
It's always trade-offs.
So there are always trade-offs and they always lose. And I think we should just get rid of budgets. They're very upsetting. And they're like getting a bill at the end of a meal where you've been eating with people who eat a lot more than you and someone who's a drunk.
Well, that's certainly true. I do think on this occasion it's been like receiving the bill or being waiting for it 4 days after you finished eating the meal. I mean, this has been trailed and trumpeted and hands have been wrung over it for feels like a good couple of months now.
I would continue the analogy that I never got the meal and my parents ate the meal.
You are too close to being a boomer yourself to get away with that kind of material, despite the new look.
We'll see. Well, yeah, I mean, the black hole's like getting bigger. I think this is the worst of both worlds because it seems like she's borrowing an extra $50 billion, or the potential for it, which is nearly £2,000 per family. Plus saying at the same time, oh, by the way, the taxes are going to go up to the worst they've ever been. So it's kind of like we're getting it at both ends. And it was a terrible meal.
Yes, so, it wasn't even worth it.
There was all the things. But until the actual budget comes out, you don't really know what's going to happen. You don't know how the market's going to react. Of course, banks do like people being in debt.
I want to know what the $50 billion's for. Obviously, you know, there's a huge number of established expenses they can't avoid. There's debt interest payments, there's the welfare sector and so on. Is that all she's going to spend it on? Or is there maybe some infrastructure, create some new jobs, some levelling up?
Well, they're trying to build all these houses and they're talking about improving the NHS, although that was really meant to come the NHS through organising it better. So I don't know, and I guess that's what we're going to find out in the budget. For normal people, I consider myself somewhat of a normal person, it's about what's going to happen with my mortgage. I've got to redo my mortgage next year. If we've borrowed more money, that means interest rates. This is what Jeremy Hunt's saying. That means that interest rates aren't going to be coming down as early as we thought, which means everyone's going to basically be paying higher for their mortgages. So
especially those of us, as you say, who only took out the shortest possible mortgage, thinking it won't be this expensive for long. Yeah.
So the other thing on the Mail is you've got Prince Charles. He's in Samoa and he's drinking some kava. And now I don't know if kava is if that's
The same as the Cava that you get instead of Prosecco.
It could, yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully
It says traditional Cava. I don't know whether that's different from a non-traditional Cava, whatever that would be.
In the Telegraph, he looks very happy there. You can see him. I don't know. I think that's the before photo from the Mail, and then in the Telegraph you see him and he's just totally wasted. He's just sitting in his chair where he's got his leopard skin or whatever.
I think
it's also after he's told them they're not getting the reparations, and then it's just lemonade.
He's got the better half of the job, hasn't he? He sits there getting served by sort of, traditional ceremonial dressed Samoans, while Keir Starmer's got to... Well, hang on a minute there.
Yeah, sorry.
But... He's wearing a bush jacket, which is made famous, of course, by Roger Moore. James Bond. It's nice to see it making a comeback. They've also got, obviously, the Reeves warned over 50 billion debt fiddle. The other big story that they have is force is not ready for war, admits Defence Secretary.
Yeah.
And it's sort of hard to... Because every Defence Secretary who comes in, whether it's in a new government or not, will always come in and go, you know what, we've got no money and we're not underprepared and please give us more money. At some point, surely it's going to backfire... Sort of saying to our enemies, by the way, guys,
keep your mouth shut.
We can't fight a war at the moment. We've got no army, which is essentially what they're saying.
They're going to fall straight into our trap.
Oh, you think what it is? So we could do skirmishes, military operations, but we just can't fight a war.
Well, what we've got to hope is that the enemy don't come in small boats. We've already found out we're not good at dealing with that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We used to say, it was a famous saying 200 years ago, I do not say they cannot come, I only say they cannot come by sea. But in fact, that turns out to have been very optimistic.
They can come.
I think there is a sort of suggestion that the military are very highly trained, they're highly skilled, that they have a lot of high tech. But
all four of them.
We just don't. we don't have the numbers. We just don't have the numbers.
Yeah, they're saying we're military operations, everything's good except we can't fight. Which is a major drop. That's a problem for an army.
Our military diversity. Stuff is amazing. We've got the best pride badges of any military.
It is very similar to the... I can't remember, it was the Commonwealth Trust or somebody that came out with a report a few years ago about the NHS, and it beat every other healthcare system in the world on every criteria except health outcomes.
Right, which is a major factor, really, isn't it?
Our boots are the shiniest boots in the army, any army.
But it's also, I wonder whether, if it came to... there's no reason to think we are actually heading to war, although we might be. But I wonder if there was conscription now and how many people would actually in this country want to fight for their country.
Would you?
Well, I'm too old, so I can't. Otherwise, absolutely, of course I would. But what I mean is there's such an anti-British, anti-Western thing going on, and I don't think people globalising intifada on the streets right now would want to sign up. I wonder how many of the country really would right now, where we're at.
I'm up for it.
Josh is going to save us.
Yes. I mean, a lot of us who haven't really put beside the sort of pension provision we might have been, advised to earlier on, might be able to take that kind of hint.
I've always fancied myself as a bit of a sniper. By the way, I went on a stag do. I shouldn't really mention the story, but I went
a sniper.
I went on a sniper stag do. I went
you mean
to
you didn't get invited?
And it was the Polish sniper team, like paintball. They absolutely destroyed me. So it turns out I wouldn't be a good sniper.
Right. Paintball's always a good point in that. We missed out the fish and chip story, but
I'm sorry. Now we're going to have to jump over.
Okay, we'll move on then. More about... let's move on to this one. This is the PM rules out payments, but could back non-cash slavery reparations. So this is with the Commonwealth Summit, and of course the subject of reparations has come up again, and there's no way they've chosen really bad timing here, because all that's being talked about in this country is how broke we are in 22 billion black holes and so on. So there's talk of we can do something, restructuring financial institutions, providing debt relief. Other suggestions are give them some tea and biscuits, coffee mugs that say we're terribly sorry, and hope they'll be happy with that. And maybe have a national apology day in which the Toffs can apologise for everything they've ever done. I don't really see that this is going to go anywhere. It's one of these things that comes up every now and then, and I think David Lammy at one point was very supportive of it, and now is in an awkward position because of that. I saw him in an interview where he talked about the fact that he's descended from slaves, but he's also descended from slavers. Which means you're descended from both. I mean, he very much talked about it as if, therefore, someone in his family made him a victim at some point. But it's like, no, you're related to both sides. So.
I would have to say his physicality suggests that he's inherited more from one side than the other. But yeah, there is that clip going around, isn't there, in which he He seems to sort of inhabit a very strong Caribbean identity in that.
Yes,
It's rather embarrassing for a foreign secretary.
But Starmer's basically said, he's been very clear about this. He said, no, we're not going to do any financial reparations. So it's a slightly weird thing that... but then supposedly someone at number 10 has said, no, we're open to other stuff. But what is there apart from the finances and the apologies or whatever, which Starmer has also said they don't want to do? So this idea of sorting out debt relief and various other things, that's not really to do with reparations. That's to do with sorting out issues that exist now. Yeah. And there are, of course, arguments that these countries are being exploited by the banks and the debt relief. There's a theory of development, of underdevelopment, where they're using their excess to pay off these interest rates and whatnot.
But also, who's responsible now? I mean, if it's reparations on behalf of the country, we're talking about hundreds of years ago. We've had a massively changed demographic through immigration and immigration. There's a question of regional culpability because, of course, parts of the UK were never involved and other parts were. There's the class divide because largely it was the upper class who benefited from slavery, and you know this would be costing the working class who weren't benefiting from it in the first place. So I think it's quite a complicated issue.
But there is someone who just says that they want a conversation towards forging a common future. This is what they were based on equity, not on equality, based on equity. And I don't remember Martin Luther King or anybody saying, I want a future based on equity.
Can we have a look at the Times? I don't know that they've got anything very much new.
My female boss tried to seduce me. This is very sexy story on the front. Oh, it's inside the paper. Oh well, got to buy the Times to get the inside story of who the female boss. It looks good, and you got the King again. There's another picture of the King. He's hanging out with the Samoans. They look like they're really having a laugh with Lance Carver. It's like through the papers we're seeing the progression of his evening. We see the drink, we see him just being like a little bit wasted, and now he's out with his mates, and they're all like, "Woo! I'm with the King!"
And there's no one complaining. There's no one complaining. There's only one white guy in the picture this time with a royal.
Well, why is he the only one with an umbrella and everybody else seems to be dry and the umbrella seems to be producing rain?
Why is that? You're right.
It's a sort of photographic artefact, but it seems...
Well, fortunately, they're topless, so they don't need to worry about getting any clothing wet.
I think that's rice they're throwing at him.
Oh, maybe it is, yeah, OK. The Sun, very quickly, what do we have in that? Nuke sub in food shortage? A
rather odd story, yes. A sub that was 6 months patrol underwater and ran out of food. They don't say whether it's one of ours. I'm not quite sure. I'm assuming it's ours.
And only half the
They ate each other and one person was left.
Basically, it's like Alive, but under the sea.
They ended up sharing their scraps and their bits of chocolate and so on, which is it's a nice story. People sharing with each other, right?
So not only do our army, we've got 4 people in our army, and we've got subs that we're sending out for 6 months with not enough Ritz crackers. That's terrible.
Do they not even have subs to eat on a sub?
That's the front pages done. Coming up, we have beer gardens to remain smoky after all, and how would you like to know how long you've got left? Well, you've got a couple of minutes to think about it. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Young adults spend a few years living away from home at university, those who go to university, but many then have no choice but to move back in with their parents because of the rising cost of renting.
But is this an excuse, and are Gen Z or Z just being lazy?
I mean, what do you make of it, Debbie? Because we do have to have some sympathy, don't we, in that, you know, rents are very high, it's very hard to get a mortgage. There are issues there.
I think the push towards young people to go to university as well is not necessarily the right thing for a lot of people. And I think people should start work early. These guys leave their universities with a huge amount of debt, no jobs, or huge rent. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So I think we've got to look at the work ethic and start it younger. Because I think it's so easy just to move back with your mum and dad, isn't it?
To speak like a Gen Zer, they would say that, well, it's OK for your generation, you had it easy.
Realistically, that isn't quite That's true, because a lot of people then didn't go to university. This is a relatively new thing that everybody goes to university.
I have to say, what strikes me today is that you still have, amongst all these problems, not having enough money, going to university when perhaps you shouldn't be, all these sort of issues, you still get all these people saying, well, I'm going to have a year out.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I think the thing is, they say, oh, it was easy for you, but it wasn't really. We still had to rent places.
But the thing is with this debate, Debbie, is the generation we're talking about, Gen Z, who we're accusing of being lazy, have been raised by our generation.
Yeah.
So what have we done wrong that, if they are lazier, has made them like that?
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners, taking a look at Friday's newspapers. We go to the Sun now, Kerry. In beer gardens, smokers can heave a throaty, gargling, phlegmy sigh of relief.
You don't like smokers, do you?
No, I love smokers.
I can hear it in your voice. I can hear it in your attitude.
Yeah,
It's harsh.
I can hear in your voice you're a smoker.
The rasp.
Whoa.
Yes, I have a few bad habits that I'm proud of. So they were going to ban smoking, and now they're not, after everybody has said, no way, do not do it, because the pubs will close and so on. It turns out that people go to pubs for bad habits. You know, they like to drink and smoke, and nothing beats a pint and a fag. Sorry, young people don't do either. It's terrible. Yeah, so the reason people go to pubs, if that stops, then, of course, people are not going to go to pubs. That is the fairly obvious knock-on effect that we're expecting.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, there's, I think, about something like 12, 13% of the population still smoke. Obviously, they might be overrepresented in the pub-going population.
Yes, that's what I'd reckon.
But are they really enough to determine the fortunes?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely.
No, I think that alcohol is more of an addiction. And I mean, smoking kills more people than alcohol and obesity combined, but you would argue that alcohol would get people into the pub more than going for a cigarette outside.
I'll tell you what will kill pubs is the absurd prices that they are, I assume, being forced to charge, although Wetherspoon somehow seem to manage to dodge it. But, I mean, like a large whiskey now is you could almost buy a bottle of the stuff in Tesco.
Well, that's what I do. I take in a couple of whiskey bottles underneath.
But that's why it's nice to sit there and have your expensive whiskey with a cigarette, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also I think they should bring back smoking indoors. That was great fun. And on planes, it was so much fun smoking on planes. And the bus, upstairs on the bus, at the back of the bus. By the way, we should get reparations, the smokers. We had to sit at the back of a bus. That's not very nice, is it?
Very true.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
But you know what? The other downside of laws like this is, and everything we said before, everything has knock-on effects. The knock-on effect of banning things like this is you start getting more wannabe cops everywhere who are going to go around telling people. And I've witnessed this in Australia, where you get told off all the time. I got told off more in Australia, not just for that, drinking. Once I sat down at a comedian's bar after work, and we sat, but there was already some drinks on the table, and someone half my age told me off like I've never been told off before. But this is the thing,
Australia is actually a bit of a fascist state. People don't get it.
So in terms of the proposed ban on smoking, this seems to be one of a number of measures that the Labour government have sort of floated, tested.
This is how Labour or any government really does policy. They float something out there, they see what the reaction is. Oh, yeah, what do you guys think about it? Oh, you know what? OK, no, let's stop doing it. OK, we're not doing it, anybody. That seems to be what they're doing. The Sun here said that, so they're pulling back on the law. So now it's just going to be the hospitality sector that is allowed here. And according to the Sun, the hospitality sector is essentially boozers and horse race courses. That's the totality of the. That's for the sun.
They're the ones where it will be banned, is it?
Where it won't be banned.
Oh, it won't be banned.
Yeah. So forget restaurant. If you read the Sun, that's all you're doing. You're going to pubs and you're going to the horse races. But no, it's going to be banned outside hospitals and schools, which I think is a terrible idea outside hospitals, because you don't want a surgeon who's he's about to. He's quitting smoking and he's about to cut out your liver or whatever it is.
Looks like a dad date to give up sniffing
shaking,
glue.
Whatever it is. Like, I want that surgeon to be fully sort of smoked up.
What about the suggestion that smoking claims 80,000 lives a year, puts huge pressure on our NHS and costs taxpayers billions? Now, it may claim those lives, but they were going to die one day or another. Meanwhile, smokers are paying an absolute fortune for the privilege of putting a burden on the NHS.
Yes.
I would say they probably pay their way.
It's a huge income. I think they pay their way, definitely. I think, the tax is massive on cigarettes.
I think smokers should be forced to buy cigarettes, but not allowed to smoke them.
Fair enough.
Harsh.
Now, Josh?
Really harsh.
Everyone likes to get their palm read as a naughty little vicarious thrill in the garden party or at the end of the pier, but how do you fancy getting an accurate AI reading of your lifeline?
This is kind of terrifying. UK hospitals set to use superhuman AI death calculator that will tell all patients when they're going to die. So would you want to know? And I don't know if I would want to know, really. It's a very simple test. It's essentially an ECG, which just checks your heart. But by combining it with all the AI data, they, in a very sort of cheap way, they can pretty much tell you with a 78% accuracy whether you're going to die in the next 10 years.
In the next 10 years, which is actually, that's not quite what... It's not like giving you a date, is it? It's just like, have you got another 10 years?
If I was told I've got a 78% chance of dying in the next 10 years...
You know, there are all those things
do
like...
something with my life.
Can you, if you lie down on the floor... If you lie down on the floor, can you get up without using your hands?
No.
You heard that? No? Then you're going to die in the next 10 years. Do you want to see if you can do that?
We've got no cameras, so you can't prove it.
You've got hands in the air. That's it. Can you get up? Oh, dear. Floundering like a seal.
That was horrible.
That is really pathetic.
That was really awful.
I'm dead! I'm dead!
OK, I'm going to have to do it now to demonstrate. Go down like that.
I know that you practiced this before we came out here, and you just wanted to prove...
He's done it. He's done it. Oh, my God.
Right, you think I'm joining in, but I am not.
That's because even with your hands,
I would embarrass you by springing out of my knees,
barely 6 months
flying up in the air.
I'm practice in the
I had one of these ECGs done, and apparently I'm already dead.
Well,
but I still go. Nothing stops men like me.
Yes.
But I think it's weird. It says. First of all, by the way, this technology is going to get better and better, and at some point you will be able to get this done. It will tell you you've got 7 years, 3 months, and you will have a heart attack and you will die because the ambulance will get stuck in a traffic jam.
Yes.
And that's where we're going to get... We can't stop technology and what it's going to do. But there's something really uncomfortable about this. What if this tells you up to 10 years? Well, what if it's 11 years? Does that mean they won't tell you? Or they're going to say, come back in a year? And then we'll tell you.
I think its accuracy tails off is the point, but I think there is something...
OK, but there's still got to be a cut-off point, though, hasn't there? 12 years, 13 years. How many years will it tell you up to?
Why are you so against this?
I think there's something quite sinister about it, which I suspect is what Kerry is sensing, is that they will pass this information on to life insurance companies and so on, you know, and that...
You can find out when people you don't like are going to die. That'd be quite nice.
Yeah.
That's information you can use.
And then you'd be like, I really hate you.
Yeah.
And then they'll be dead. You will know you won't see them again.
We have trans charity Mermaids now. Kerry, this is in the Telegraph. The Charity Commission have got Mermaids by the short and scalers, by the sound of it.
Yes. So Mermaids have been warned about their false claims on puberty blockers and on binders, which they've been giving out to girls as young as 13. I don't know whether I can say girls, can I? Girl-shaped people. Is that the correct expression now? It's odd, isn't it? We've been through this. I remember growing up and hearing about the corsets of the Victorian era and Chinese foot binders, and now we're giving out these binders to girls in our age.
Secretly behind the parents' backs.
Without parents even knowing about it. It's kind of... It's basically what this is common sense is returning to something where ideology kind of got out of control and took over science and healthcare for a while. They're not in any serious... I don't think there's any sort of fines or trouble for that. They're just being warned to stop doing this now, and they've changed everything on their website.
It's not a good look that they've been giving out false information, essentially lies, saying that these drugs have no ramifications or side effects, and it turns out that they do. And they've been chastised accordingly. This is meant to be a children's charity, and arguably giving out advice that has harmed children.
What do you find most alarming? The fact that they were keeping parents in the dark, I think, is the...
that's the or was it a pedo they had, or whatever, some guy who gave a speech at a pedo
Yeah, some of the
something.
people who were attracted to the organisation are certainly a rum bunch. I mean, there is, I suppose,
Is that olden day speak for pedo?
to try and present, I suppose, the strongest possible case for them, they would say puberty blockers are used in a number of other circumstances and have been for some years. This isn't a brand.
But so
new
have cancer
innovation.
patients. So have cancer drugs, which some of these things are,
Yeah.
So they, for something that's really needed, as opposed to a innate feeling which a child has that is arguably part of a social contagion.
Yeah.
There's unquestionably times where any drug is useful and times where you're overprescribing.
Saturday night, drugs are very useful.
Where have you been going?
Well, we'll talk about that in the next story.
At your age.
So that's fair enough. They are, mermaids are sliding down the slippery slope. Josh, asylum seekers are in the Express now, which is where they belong, really, and the eye-watering costs of their accommodation, let alone their tuck shops.
Asylum seekers in the UK cost as much as boarding school fees, study revealed. So, supposedly twice as much as people were saying before, £40,000 a year, which I guess is then what it would be to go to boarding school. Thanks, Mum and Dad. And hotel costs on average of £145 a night. I don't stay anywhere. Where are these hotels? Supposedly they're not even very nice places. So I never pay more than 50 quid when I'm out of town doing a gig.
I think, well, that's funny enough. I had a couple of comedians down in Hove last night, and one of them stayed in a hotel in Hove, which is a fairly nice part of the world, for 70 quid.
70 quid. So where are these 145 quid?
70 sounds more like it. Where are you getting hotels for 50 quid now?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't...
Then they say...
You haven't been to Liverpool for a while.
If you get a flat or a shared home, it's £14 a night. I mean, that is quite optimistic, isn't it?
It seems a bit odd they're comparing it to boarding schools. I don't know what one thing has got to do with another. I mean, you could say they're eating better than people in submarines, which is also true, it turns out. The only people who are doing really well out of this are the hoteliers. They must be hotels making guaranteed full rooms every single night.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether they're trying to sell us that therefore we'd be better off sending them to boarding school. What's the point of this?
I think that's a good idea, and that would solve the whole VAT thing as well.
We're halfway through. Loads more to come after the break with hog-tied trespassers, the pros and cons of being pretty, and the shirt that had to be evicted from the Big Brother screens. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen cloud progressively build in the west all day, and that cloud will bring heavy rain overnight. In the east, it's drier, but even here, increasingly cloudy as an area of low pressure moves into Ireland, bringing a slow-moving weather front, hence the advancing cloud through the day. But that cloud will be thick enough to bring showery rain into the southwest and then Wales through the evening, as well as Northern Ireland after around midnight. Some heavy bursts and some wet weather expected in places overnight, but drier to the east, even if it is increasingly gloomy by dawn. A lot of low cloud around, some mist and hill fog. A few cloud breaks are possible, but on the whole, it's generally a grey start to the day, a mild start because we've still got this southerly wind direction, so by 7 a.m, 14 or 15 Celsius. However, for southwest England, for parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, we've got those outbreaks of heavier rain. Some showers pushing into the northwest of England and western Scotland. Drier to the east, but a lot of cloud. Just a few breaks possible there for the northeast of Scotland. Otherwise, for many, well, it is a overcast start to Friday morning and doesn't brighten up much through the morning either, except for the southwest, where we do get some breaks in the cloud returning by the afternoon, albeit with an increasing breeze and some showers. Meanwhile, cloud and rain slowly moves into the Midlands and the southeast. Some heavy bursts, but generally it fizzles out. It's another mild day, but it's not quite as mild as Thursday. By the start of Saturday, the cloudier and wetter weather is confined to the northwest of Scotland. Still some showery rain in the southeast, but otherwise it's a clear start to the day. A few fog patches, they lift into sunny spells. Sunday's also mostly fine for much of the country with some decent spells of sunshine, but for northwestern Scotland there'll be some heavy rain.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
Who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners. So we have some good old-fashioned rural vigilante justice now in the Telegraph, Josh, but our lily-livered so-called police are not impressed, it seems.
Yeah, farmer hog-ties trespassers to quad bike and drives them to the police station and then gets arrested himself. This is Neil Greenwood, he's 52, and he's questioned on a suspicion of false imprisonment. And I don't know if we've got the photo or not. We had it before, but it was...
yeah.
It was not a good look. It looked like a sex party gone wrong.
What was it, a picture of the boys tied to the quad bike?
Yes, on the top, but with their sort of hoodies down, and it seems like they'd been messing around his field on a motorbike or something. The farmer had locked them in the field or locked the motorbike in, and they'd had to go back the next day. And then but that's good for him. 52 years old to detain like a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. That's physically impressive, I think.
That was what struck me. The man had managed to do this on his own. I wasn't quite sure what was the other one hanging around, waiting to see what was going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe they just gave up immediately. Maybe they thought maybe that's what they wanted.
We do have the image, apparently. Let me just...
Oh, we do have the image.
There we go,
yeah.
I can't really make that out. What is going on there?
There's two blokes, bums in the air with hoodies on.
OK.
That's his quad bike.
They had been delivered, and he drove that down a main road with those two wobbling around, and they were going to fall off, apparently.
Talking as someone who, during the break, managed to stand up straight away after lying on his back, which I did, by the way, because I'm really tough. This guy doesn't impress me that much now.
Really?
He would have done it before I tried that. But at first you read this and you think, oh, this is one of these hero stories where he's being condemned for being a hero. If he'd done this with someone who, one of these motorcyclists who stole a mobile phone off someone on the pavement, then good on him. But this was a couple of kids trespassing, and they'd gone back to get the bike. And as you say, I can't even imagine. A hog tie is, am I right? It's hands... It's hands and feet tied together, isn't it?
Yes.
Behind the back or
behind
in front?
Your back, yeah. Like Pulp Fiction style-y.
Then I can't get my head around how you do that with two people. Well, I have some rope here, gentlemen.
You might have.
And we're going to try a little experiment.
Maybe you had a shotgun?
We've done our one physical Jake for the evening, I'm afraid. I'll wait for that for tomorrow. I don't know, the whole film, it just feels a bit like a stunt to me or something, although I'm hard-pressed to say why. I don't say that the lads are in on it exactly, but it just doesn't seem plausible. I
can't get my head around how you do that. How do you hold one down and tie his feet and legs?
You wait there.
Yeah.
You'll see what's going to be happening to you in a minute. Now.
But also, imagine the guy arriving at the police station thinking they're going to be impressed.
Yeah.
And look what I've done. And they're like, no.
This is how it's done.
Yeah, you've got Vigilante all wrong.
Oh, well, he's raised the profile of the farming community's trespasser woes. Anyway...
Get off my land.
Meanwhile, Kerry, this will be a tricky one for the three of us to discuss. None of us like to acknowledge the privileges
Speak
we
for
enjoy.
yourself, Simon. Do you have to be attractive to get ahead? Here's the ugly truth. So this is about pulchronomics, which is the often hidden, often controversial economics of beauty. And there's this guy, he's called, here it says, Anil Hamamesh, but I think they've missed out the D, so I'm guessing he's Daniel rather than Anil, which he might be, though. He might be or he might be anal for an Anil Hamamesh, maybe. That's his unfortunate name. But basically, he's looked into how ugliness affects people, and it turns out he's discovered that ugly people are less attractive. and that affects them for the rest of their life. Now, where this does get interesting, and it is worrying because, of course, it's going to lead to the ugly rights movement, ugly pride march down some dirty back street. And but I remember hearing about this at the time. People born in the UK between March 3rd and March 9th, 1958, were part of this massive survey that was done, which was finding about what would happen to them later in life, and it went through a number of different factors. But I didn't know this. The teachers were also asked to rate their pupils on attractiveness.
Yeah, it's a bit pedo-y.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that would wash now, but it was bone structure and where they're symmetrical, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
and
they
so
were just
now,
given a sort of like a 5 marks out of 5.
Four,
Well,
he's
yeah,
fit.
also
He's
like
fit.
no,
the teacher didn't write 4. I don't think that was acceptable.
You're right,
I
though.
would.
There is the eye of the beholder thing going on here. You should probably really have a committee of at least half a dozen teachers. Take a sort of standardised view across the whole... You might get a different point of view from the biology teacher, from the Latin master.
You suggest this to a school, and then we can see if we get it going.
It's interesting, though. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but generally speaking, it is understood within sort of psychological, psychometrics and so on, that IQ is the thing that most closely maps your outcomes, generally speaking. But pulchronomic, the idea of beauty is the one that isn't discussed. And there is genuinely a theory that this is actually the great determinant of your life chances. How far you'll get ahead, how successful a marriage you have, whether you have children, whether you will get, hold down a job and all that. I think it is quite important.
No,
because,
I think it's something interesting to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But as Kerry says, there is that danger then, of course, that it becomes a disability
they get
or
their own colour on the pride flag, do you think?
Or whatever it is, or you have good-looking advantage, or whatever, if it's a real thing. And then also, the controversial thing here, what it says is, all the good-looking people move down south, or to the south east, or whatever, where the economic opportunities, I guess, are greater. And then, and I'm not saying this, but it says all the ugly people move to Wales.
Yes, it does say that.
That's what it says.
It says it here.
Whipple,
this
the
is not
Times
us.
science editor, who my wife knows vaguely, who I think actually lives in Monmouth.
OK, there we go. And is he attractive? Attractive enough for your wife to know,
well,
or not
according to the article, he thought he was a 4, but Anil, or whatever his name is, said he was a 3, and he sounds a bit miffed about that.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be unpopular as a subject of study, and I mean, some people find the study itself ugly.
The thing is that it's going to change, though. This is the thing, and where I suppose it could get serious, is that I know for a fact, obviously, that, cosmetic surgery is a massive thing now, and in its broadest sense, people getting fake tans and so on, mentioning no names, there is an enormous industry there. But that has been largely, people just wanting to have a more successful sex life when they're younger. If you can start to see it as your route to success across, the full spectrum of life chances, it's only
once it gets really good,
once it gets really good, start getting cheek implants.
But of course, we're also doing that with apps and so on as well, because one day we'll forget what people actually look like, because the photos of everyone now have been enhanced and so on. And
we all live in the
you could tell at one point. Now it's getting very difficult. So
that is true. Yeah, that's one of the things. The arguments against Ozempic, isn't it? Is that your ability to keep weight off using traditional self-control used to be quite a strong signalling mechanism.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Up to Scotland now, Josh, where the long stewing row over who exactly rape crisis centres are for has taken a new turn.
Yeah, Glasgow Centre cuts ties with the Rape Crisis Scotland over trans row. What happened at the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre was it hired a man, a biological male, to run the rape centre, and there was some... and that trans woman, or man, basically pursued a policy of pushing trans ideology onto it, and also it seems like sort of witch hunts against people who were more gender critical. And so this service was not a single-sex space, essentially. That has now, it looks like over in Glasgow, they have broken ties with the people who oversaw that rape centre and said, we want to make sure that the people we're here to take care of, which, of course, these women who've been through unbelievable trauma, are able to be helped in the safest way in a single-sex space.
Do you think it's slightly suspicious? It's not just chance, is it? It's not statistically likely that the head of a rape crisis centre would end up being a trans woman. It just seems absurd on the face of it. If it had just happened as an unintended consequence of some other But quite obviously,
but also,
somebody
this
doing
person
that. Why are you doing that?
wasn't qualified either.
No.
They weren't a therapist. They hadn't come from that background. So it seems like it was one of these things that was put through purely about ideology, purely for the optics of it. And then women, again, who've been through this terrible experience, were harmed in that way. It's horrible.
We'll move on. No books for older boys is the lament in the Daily Mail. Kerry, from what I remember, the trick is to put a sexy bit into Jaws or The Rats or whatever, and lads will skip straight ahead to adult.
That's what worked for you, was it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So publishing has left boys behind, and this is about teen books being more lent towards girls, as in what you find now is that girls are the hero in every single book. It is totally unfashionable for a boy to look good. And, of course, there's also an increase in romance for girls prefer romance. Who would have thought that, considering we've been told for so long there's no difference between the two sexes. This has been a trend for a long time. It's sort of back through the 80s where fiction started becoming... originally it was aimed more at boys and education was aimed more at boys. So there was this huge effort to say girls are being left out, which was a good effort, but it seems like the pendulum swung so far in that direction that now boys are being left out, and it's that people are realising that they're now less interested in reading books. And there's authors saying that they're being advised to make the protagonist a girl. So if it's a hero, or they could write a book about comedy clubs, and they could have all-female comedians, because in the fictional world you can have there's lots of fictional female comedians to choose from. In the real world, it would be a bit more difficult.
But you know what? This is a real problem. I've got 4 boys of the 5, and every few months I freak out because they're not reading enough, and I'll take everybody to the bookshop, and we'll stand in the children's section, and there's just no books for them. No. They're teenagers. It's every single book. Now, it's not that I say don't read a book that's about a girl, but every single book has some sort of fairy or fantasy or whatever.
Fiction is coded female now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they say it here, it's subconsciously focused on their publishing efforts, it's not been subconsciously, it's been absolutely consciously.
That's the end of part 3. One more section to go. The Queen's low-tech handset, the cunning Ukrainian hackers, and the death of the Great British nightclub. See you in a couple of minutes.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles, and so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that touch at the heartstrings, and this is certainly one of those. And I think it's the first time we've actually seen Catherine back in a royal duty since she herself confirmed that she'd finished chemotherapy.
Done so much, haven't they, the Princess of Wales and the King, to raise awareness for these cancers.
Here we have both the King and Catherine having, explained to the nation and the rest of the world that they were battling, or are still battling, cancer, just like everyone else.
How sincere is all of this? I mean, it looks like she's a wonderful, kind, caring woman, but I don't know. I've never met her.
Well, she is a wonderful, kind, caring woman. That is without a shadow of a doubt. And William heard about this young lady on a visit to the air ambulance, and they invited her because she's a photographer, so she wanted to take. She has a bucket list and wanted to take pictures of an investiture. I mean, make no mistake, people like Catherine are just absolutely wonderful in what they do and how they do it. I mean, and Catherine is the superstar of the royal family. Of that, there is no doubt.
It's the cockles of my heart, Charles. It really does. It's really good to see you. Thanks very much.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Charles. Thanks. And Liz, who is this 16-year-old amateur photographer who was hugged by Princess of Wales yesterday, has said it was a dream come true.
I bet it was.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to the final section of Headliners. So, Kerry, a useful insight now into how the King and Queen have managed to stay reasonably sane in the Telegraph.
The Queen uses Nokia brick sun reveals, so she uses an old-style phone. This is the Queen, not obviously it gets confusing. Not the Queen as we called the Queen all our lives. That Queen, because it'd be very weird if she was using any phone right now. That would be a massive news story. But this is
Camilla.
So this is Tom Parker Bowles saying his mother uses the old-fashioned phone. They're calling it a Nokia brick. We're told here it's because of their sturdiness, but actually I thought it's because they used to be more brick-like, and because young people won't know this watching the programme, but before mobile phones, we used to actually walk around with bricks and talk to them. You know, they gave us comfort. But we moved on. So yeah, I think a lot of older people use.
Sounded like the Queen for a second there.
Sorry,
you sounded like the Queen.
I was doing a bit of an impression there. We like to use our phone. So there's nothing to do with the Hezbollah pager attack, that she's just scared of her phone now or anything. But I think there's a lot of older generation who prefer the simpler phone anyway. My mum wouldn't like a smartphone.
So you're saying that it's because she doesn't have social media, so it's not the Queen who's following me on Twitter. It's not the real one.
It might be though.
The King, he doesn't ruin your expectations. The real Camilla. The real Camilla. Yeah. The King doesn't. Supposedly the King doesn't have a mobile phone. He's like the sort of mafia.
He doesn't
like
even
how people pass the messages to him and whisper in his ear. Yeah.
He
also, his fat
doesn't
fingers is not good.
He does,
Sorry.
He doesn't even have his own toothbrush, I don't think, the King. Doesn't even use his own toothbrush.
Louis Schaefer style.
What do you mean?
Somebody does.
Does someone brush his teeth?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
Does he carry cash nowadays?
But I am interested to know whether there is something. There's a class issue here to some extent as well. There is like a point at which it's actually classier, I think, to not have an iPhone or a similar, a smart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet that fellow.
It's a power thing.
Yeah, it is. It's like it's a bit of a flex, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like Mark Zuckerberg, dressing in, going into meetings in pajamas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a billionaire, I can do whatever I want.
I bet that fellow who bailed out the trespassers doesn't have a smartphone either. I think they would see eye to eye on that cunning, if rather underhand, weaponisation of Russian military wives and their natural desire to appear in a sultry calendar. This is in the Mail.
Well, this actually is a better story than the Mossad pages, I think.
Yeah.
How Ukrainian hackers duped Russian soldiers' wives to pose for calendar, exposing the commander and regiment behind the Mariupol theatre bombing atrocity that killed hundreds of civilians. And this is a hacktivism organisation called Inform Napalm, formed in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea by Russia. And they seem to be like those donkey blokes, but actually good and clever.
Led by
donkeys, in that they go out. So in this case, it was brilliant. They found the general who was part of the bomb, who ran the bombing thing on this theatre, contacted his wife and said, would you organise a sort of calendar and do racy photos to raise money or whatever? So not only was it humiliating for them to have to do that, but also they managed to collect quite a lot of information about the other people involved in the bombing run. So really, it's win-win.
And humiliated them at the same time.
Exactly.
And also they're getting Russia back for all its at its own game of hackers and bots, which it's very into. And they're just doing it better.
We have one last story for tonight, Kerry. UK club said to be extinct in 5 years' time. I have to say I won't probably notice their demise. Keep me posted.
Speaking to Sky News, this is Michael Kill, which is not the greatest name, or maybe it is a good name for this particular article. I can't tell whether this... He's basically saying that, as you say, UK clubs are going to be extinct in 5 years, and it's a good thing. It feels on the edge of being a bit of a bitter opinion piece, really. And but I can understand that the clubbing in its day. I had some fun in clubs, but really there are a load of sweat and noise. They're awful places.
Yeah.
If you go to the gents, and your shoes will stick to everything for about the next week.
It's a good rule in life never to enter one during the hours of daylight, isn't it? They
Yes.
say, you see what
Yes,
they're like.
you don't want to see. You don't want to know.
That's quite telling in itself. Will you mourn the passing of the club, Josh?
No, I only ever went there to meet women.
Yeah.
And
Met one.
And now they're not interested. No, I'm married. Happily.
Realise what a waste of time that was.
Yeah.
Show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at tomorrow's front pages. The Times, Reeves risks hurting pensioners. The Telegraph, Reeves warned over £50 billion debt fiddle. The Daily Mail, Labour's budget ploy will punch mortgage holders. Guardian, PM rules out payments but could back non-cash slavery reparations. The Metro, £1.8 billion cost of thieving crisis. And the Daily Star, there's a guy each down the curry house swears he's Paul Weller. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests. We'll be back tomorrow with some other people. We'll see who's around. That's at 11 p.m. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Otherwise, thank you for your company and have a very peaceful night's sleep. Good night.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen cloud progressively build in the west all day, and that cloud will bring heavy rain overnight. In the east, it's drier, but even here, increasingly cloudy as an area of low pressure moves into Ireland, bringing a slow-moving weather front, hence the advancing cloud through the day. But that cloud will be thick enough to bring showery rain into the southwest and then Wales through the evening, as well as Northern Ireland after around midnight. Some heavy bursts and some wet weather expected in places overnight, but drier to the east, even if it is increasingly gloomy by dawn. A lot of low cloud around, some mist and hill fog. A few cloud breaks are possible, but on the whole, it's generally a grey start to the day, a mild start because we've still got this southerly wind direction, so by 7 a.m, 14 or 15 Celsius. However, for southwest England and for parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, we've got those outbreaks of heavier rain. Some showers pushing into the northwest of England and western Scotland. Drier to the east, but a lot of cloud. Just a few breaks possible there for the northeast of Scotland. Otherwise, for many, well, it is a overcast start to Friday morning and doesn't brighten up much through the morning either, except for the southwest, where we do get some breaks in the cloud returning by the afternoon, albeit with an increasing breeze and some showers. Meanwhile, cloud and rain slowly moves into the Midlands and the southeast. Some heavy bursts, but generally it fizzles out. It's another mild day, but it's not quite as mild as Thursday. By the start of Saturday, the cloudier and wetter weather is confined to the northwest of Scotland. Still some showery rain in the southeast, but otherwise it's a clear start to the day. A few fog patches, they lift into sunny spells. Sunday's also mostly fine for much of the country with some decent spells of sunshine, but for northwestern Scotland there'll be some heavy rain.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Make sure you don't miss out. Get